Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take a nice big step into, well, the past with a series of books I know most people have heard of, especially if you're a reader, and especially since over a 19-20 year period of time, this series sold over 250 million copies, and that's Choose Your Own Adventure. The very first Choose Your Own Adventure book was conceived by Edward Packard, and I believe that was published in 1976 under a title called Adventures of You, and it was called Sugarcane Island. That particular title would get reprinted under Bantam as number 62. So Bantam did take over the property, and well, with Packard, because he wrote quite a few of them himself. And it actually has continued beyond it. There's a whole other company called Choose Co. that has various reprints. They own the Choose Your Own Adventure name, and Packard himself actually has his own called You Ventures. So I didn't know that till I looked up the information to get a little more info to give to you over the video and everything. So they are still out there in newer versions. The very first one was The Cave of Time, which indeed came out in 1979. I'm not going to go through all. I actually have up to 1 through 61, and then for some reason picked up a number 86, Knights of the Round Table. Just to poke at a few of my favorites. The very first one I got was called Mountain Survival. And just as you see on the cover, plane crash, freeze in the cold, climb a mountain, get eaten by bears, pick your way through, and hopefully you make it through. I think the first time I actually read this, I did survive and make it to a good ending. We have here inside UFO 5440. Now there's one little interesting, unique aspect to this one. And now everybody who's ever read a Choose Your Own Adventure books thinks they're cheating, because you'll read through, make a choice, read through, make a choice, and then you get to a bad end and you're like, well, I'm going right back. I'm not going back to the beginning. I'm going to go back to the previous choice. Well, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. It's not really cheating. Why would you start all the way at the beginning? This one had, like many, a best ending. There's always good endings, bad endings, sort of by the skin of your teeth endings, and they always have like a best ending. And the one in this, though, it actually instructs you or hints to you that you're not getting to that ending unless you cheat. The actual best ending has a certain page, and you just have to flip through till you find it. It actually tells you that in the book. A little uniqueness to that one. The Race Forever. You have an off-road version and a, I guess, pavement asphalt version. And in one, you get to the end, and it just instructs you to go back and start the other race, so you can just keep going for as long as you want. If you survive, there is a way to get killed in these. Escape. That was a classic one right there. Most people enjoy. The United States is falling apart. You got to get away. You're part of the resistance. There is a ground version and an air version, but the air version is probably the most well known, or at least that path, I should say, rather, right there. Space Patrol. You're basically a space cop. You're in the solar system. You don't go out in the galaxy or anything like that. You've got space pirates to deal with. You've got some corporate intrigue, as I seem to recall. You potentially get murdered in this one. Space pirates. There's at least one alien visitation I know of, and you have an AI that helps you run the ship that sometimes you have to deal with. Vampire Express. This is a good one. As a child, used to be scared to death of vampires, and even had a vampire action figure, which I used to have to hide in a drawer because I didn't like having it out at night. This right here is my favorite. Treasure Diver. You're going to deal with pirates. You're going to deal with a pirate lord. You're going to deal with sharks in the environment. Sometimes you'll live. Sometimes you'll die. Sometimes you'll find that treasure, or at least part of it. This was just so much fun, and it's probably everybody's dream that they get down and find a sunken treasure worth billions. And it's a fun book. You get a little lesson on scuba diving at the very beginning of the book. I seem to recall that if it weren't for Treasure Diver, this one right here was my favorite. Sabotage, where you are off to rescue a couple of people from the Nazis, and you got one, I believe it's that guy, primary villain, chasing after you through the whole book. This is one of the longer ones. It doesn't look like much longer, but this one had a bit more pages going for it, one of the bigger ones. This one's just a fun one. You are a shark. Well, you're not just a shark, but periodically through this, you change into a different animal. Shark, eagle. There's a whale on the back. That was a fun one right there. They had an offshoot series called Time Machine. These were a little different because not only were they bigger, but you don't die in any of these. You simply get caught in a loop. So you get so far and you fail and you can't go any further, and you have to go back to another page and start again and try to find your way through it. You have The Secret of the Nights. You have Search for Dinosaurs. That's number 2. Number 3, Sword of the Samurai. Let me get that one in just a second. Civil War Secret Agent. What was this one called? Ice Age Explorer. It's been a little while. There was a pirate one, and I have no idea what I did with it. I searched through this entire freaking house for it. I just cannot find it anywhere. That was a fun one. This one was really good. This one had an interesting little lesson in it. You are going to go back in time and find Miyamoto Musashi, who was a real historical figure. I don't know that he was an unbeaten swordsman, but in far as real life battles go, nobody ever killed him. He participated in wooden sword only duels and things like that. Real world badass in the world. So in this book, you're tasked to go get one of his swords. And at one point you attend a duel, and you're walking around and you come across his opponent, and he's talking about how he's going to drug Musashi's drink so he can win the duel. You're like, well, I can't let that happen. So you go and you tell Musashi, and he's like, well, he's a great samurai. He'd do anything to win. And you think about that for a second, and you wonder, how far does cheating go? There's a little lesson here in maybe real life situations, wartime. You're going to get into a fight. There's no rules. Do whatever you can to win. But then people tend to apply this to modern day sports. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Gracie family has a history of submitting people to rules that they themselves don't have to follow when they have like little special occasion bouts. It's kind of interesting to hear about, and you wonder about how far should you go to bend the rules in your favor and under what conditions. I got that out of that book right there. Aside from Choose Your Own Adventure, we got Endless Quest books. These were TSR Dungeons and Dragons versions of Choose Your Own Adventure. The first one they made was the first one I ever got. I think it was the first 4 I, as a little kid, stole out of a hobby store. I just didn't have enough money, and I wanted these suckers, and I got them. But I quit doing that. Getting caught wasn't something I wanted to do, so a lot of my allowance money went for these. They did have also some space ones that had to do with a space role-playing, and they had a post-apocalypse version as well. And my favorite, Conan and the Prophecy, as you run around in a city with a sidekick. This is the best one. It's my favorite by far. And this one led me to go get the original Robert Howard Conan books and read through those, which is a wonderful famous series to get into. Endless Quest. So beyond that, also we had game books. Now, I tried to find one I had called Scorpion Swamp. And unlike, just like these books, you pick your way through when you have options and choices you make and go to such and such page. But you also had to roll dice. You had to have combat and have some paper to keep track of the points you score and things like that. This one called Scorpion Swamp tells you have to make a map. Well, I didn't need to do that. And I go through and I got lost. So if it tells you to make a map, if you ever decide to play one of these game books, you should probably make the map so you don't get lost and have to go back and start over. That's what I had to do. This is a real popular series, Lone Wolf. This is the only one I ever got. It does have an ending, but the series continues. This is not, this ends before you ever get to the end of your mission. And this ran for a long time. This today, did I write that down? Let's see here, 31 books this ran. And it has resurged. The creator, they remade the books. They're a little bigger. They have newer interior art. So if you wanted to get updated versions of these and play them, you certainly can. And then back to some D&D stuff here. Sagard the Barbarian. There are 4 of these. I only ever got the 2, and I can't remember why I didn't pursue the others. And again, you have to roll dice and fight monsters. This was actually created by the D&D creator, Gary Gygax, and a fellow by the name of Flint Dill. And cover art by the late, great Richard Corbin. These were pretty much the foundation of my 1980s reading. I was originally handed the novelization of Star Wars: A New Hope, and that turned me into a more of a reader. And I, found Choose Your Own Adventure and started reading them. Endless Quest, started reading them, and so on. At some point, I asked myself, what is this speed of light they keep jumping to? I knew kind of what it was, but I didn't know how fast it was. Well, we had a set of encyclopedia, and I went and found out, and I learned something. Well, I just kept going. I kept reading through these sets of encyclopedia whenever I had some spare time. I was a little bit bored. So, set of encyclopedia, Choose Your Own Adventure books, game books, and comic books out the waz. I quit comics. I got them here and there through the 90s and the aughts and all that, but I wasn't regularly a comic book writer until Marvel Comics did a reboot, and I jumped back in. And at one point, I was spending $200 a month on comics, and work tiring me out, getting a little lazy. I didn't bag them. So there's a mess of comic books in another room, which I'm not going to show off. Maybe one day when I fix it, I'll do a little tour of that. So after this foundation of adventure that I had, I attended college for just a little bit. And don't be too impressed, because my favorite class was racquetball. I had no direction in life. I didn't know where I was going. And my first couple of grown-up books, I went to the library at this community college and found Ray Bradbury's The Illustrated Man. The reason I sought it out is because in high school, I wrote a short story for a class, and the teacher said it reminded her of Ray Bradbury's The City. Well, I didn't know who that was. When I had access to a library, I decided to go look it up, and I found it, and I fell in love, and I started becoming more and more of a reader. This was part of my gateway that led to Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov, and I just kept going from there. The other one I found, this is a little bit of an odd book, very rare book. This is called The Third Millennium, and this is a science fiction book written as a history book, as if it's the year 3000, and it's looking back to all the way to the year 2000. It's a little hard to describe. A lot of the things you find in science and science fiction or futurism are in here, from space colonies, and they make their own civilization inside and head off to another solar system, slower than the speed of light. There's no breaking of physics in the book. Asteroid mining, things of that nature. It predicts the telescreen. Got my big TV over here, and people using it to communicate through the internet. It does at one point. It uses a real life extension research idea called nucleic acid as a supplement, and someone allows people to live almost 2 centuries in this. That was actually a real research supplement, and you take up to 1,500 milligrams, makes you a bit healthier, maybe a little bit longer. I think you have to get it under ribonucleic acid as a supplement. I don't know if there's such a thing as just nucleic acid. But that is all of that. That's all I wanted to really share. As far as what I'm doing now, I did just start The Dragon Prince by Get It Out of the Sun there, Melanie Ron. I usually give a book 100 pages. I'm at 75, and I think it's got my attention. As long as a book as it is a big book. She's moving right along. Nothing going too slow here. Set up the world, set up the character, set up the situation. I always wondered about, maybe we always thought this, or at least nowadays we think this, in history, how many problems would have been solved if somebody didn't worry about, were we putting the guy in charge or the girl in charge? Because here we do have a setup where a ruler has a son, and it's going to him when he dies, and the villain's got 17 daughters because he couldn't produce a son, and he needs to produce a son. How many problems and headaches can you solve? You just say, hey, let's go with the daughter. It'll be fine. She's smart. But so far, so good. Like this. Maybe I'll do a video on it if I feel like I can. And I believe that is about it for me. Wanted to share a little history with you. Hope you like this and like and subscribe. And I hope you have a lovely day. Let me get the sun out of my face. Have a nice day.